We had been playing together since we were 13. We expected the entire world at 13, just brazenly. Just said, as soon as we got through our first song, we thought, the world is ours. Now, imagine, 13. We can barely brush our teeth, but we're ready to take on the world. So, as I sit here 20 years later at 33 and look at that, I still feel like that kid somehow. Like I've been blessed by this incredibly merciful being who has allowed me to remain 13 in my heart forever. We have, as a band, always had that solidarity. I think that was the four of us being so devoted to it was really the reason that we could do it. The fact that, I think if I was on my own at that time, or any of us were on our own, we would have never had the courage, because it was like the four of us kind of sink or swim together. We were all in this moment when we were, graduated from high school. The band was really starting to get fun. We were really starting to figure out how to do songs and write songs and perform live and all that good stuff. The girls loved it, and college was, right there, and we kind of felt obligated to do that, and our parents all wanted us to do that. So it was a really big moment of kind of balls to the wall. Let's stay in the band and push, or defer our applications to college, and we went a whole year and didn't get a deal, and I was flipping out. I realized at the end of my rope, and right at the end where I was going to go to college, Gary Kerfers called and saved my life and gave us a deal with Radioactive MCA Records. We had never made a video before this Operation Spirit video. I'm 20 years old. I have no hair on my chest, and I'm singing to you on MTV. And you're gonna listen whether you like it or not, because MTV said so. I mean, literally, we made a $5,000 video, a bunch of kids from York, Pennsylvania, and they put it smack dab between Michael Jackson and Madonna. The Operation Spirit video, the thing that I remember the most is that big fire in it. And I was afraid of it because it was huge. And I didn't think anybody really knew what to do with this fire. I even think that the director was kind of like, had made a fire that was far too big, and we were kind of freaking out. It's so representative of how we felt, which was just like on fire with youth and this new band, this new ability to kind of like put songs together and actually get through a whole show. Gary, our manager, wanted us to take our shirts off. He thought it would be really like Lord of the Flies, kind of like, get us all on the beach, kind of like these young, crazy kids. And instead of asking us directly, he asked us through the camera lady. And of course, when she was pretty cute, so she asked us to take our shirts off. We were like, yeah, baby, sure, off the shirts came. We're sort of dervishes. We're sort of like in the swirl of the music all the time. And we, once in a while, we poke up our head and say, oh wow, we're making videos. We're on magazines. Isn't that funny? Let's go back to the garage. Let's go back to the studio. Because the music was so intoxicating, and it was such a loss of self that, literally to the degree that I look back on this and think, well, this is funny. In retrospective, I feel like I wasn't even there hardly. I feel like I was lost in the music for 10 years. We were making this art, we were making this music that felt to us like it was coming from somewhere really deep, and it was coming from somewhere that made us feel grown up, made us feel like we had our hands on something that was special and powerful, and we wanted the world to see what we were doing. So yeah, as far back as Mental Jewelry, you can sense that, I was into Eastern religions. I was, experimenting with meditation. I was trying to find something in myself that would be interesting to write about. I went on a spiritual search starting pretty young, and I was immediately drawn to the East. I just saw the Eastern religions as having this really unique perspective that really turned me on at a young age. And in particular, the writer Jiddu Krishnamurti was, I read this book called You Are the World, and it literally changed my life. I think believing in yourself comes from believing in the moment. I think that you get confidence in anything by resting in who you truly are, as much as you can. We weren't like, that interested in style ever in any of the videos, or any time in any part of it. of Live's career, we were always so, just focused on the music. I was always so focused on just making the lyrics right. You feel this deep impulse to tell the world about your version, like what's happening for you. Hey, check it out. I'm in a rock band. I have a microphone. You're going to hear it whether you like it or not. You have people coming up to you every day saying, yeah, but I always wanted to say something like that, but I've always felt those things, but you say it for me. Thank you very much. And that really gets you going. And that's really the exchange that, makes 12 years go by and 6 records like that, because you're having so much fun. I set out, in the beginning to be somewhere between Bono, Michael Stipe, Peter Gabriel, and Perry Farrell. I was like, okay, I'm going to somehow make an amalgamation of this and add a little York, Pennsylvania in there and stir it up and see what the hell I get. It's an album that can be experienced as a whole piece. And I think that's something that's actually dying in a lot of ways, is out. I was so influenced by Joshua Tree, by U2, and Life Search Pageant by R.E.M. They were the seminal records of my late teenage years. And they were records, they were records you could listen to from start to finish and go through this process. And so that was the goal, is to always make these records that took you on a trip. One of the big transitions from Mental Jewelry to Throwing Copper was sonically the band got louder. We were still really young and really trying to figure out how we were going to sound. And I remember hearing my first Dinosaur Jr. record and finding out about Bob Mould and Husker Du and all this great guitar rock. And I had a friend named Kurt who was in a band called the Lilies, and he kind of taught me all about guitars and tone and how to, and that you can really affect your dynamic by just, hey, crank it up, you can do so much with guitars. And so that was really sort of the birth of our our guitarness, was that transition. It was a weird time. I remember it as being kind of blank at the end of Mental Jewelry. We had lived our lives to that point, and we were off the ground as a band. We hadn't sold bazillion records by any stretch, but we had done way more than we ever thought we would. And at that point, we were sort of, especially me as a lyricist and as kind of the evolving songwriter, I was like, what do I do now? I was still living with my mother at the time. I hadn't moved out yet. I was 20. We'd just come off tour. I was 20 or 21. And I had my acoustic guitar, and I was sitting in my brother's bedroom on the edge of his bed, and I just started to play, just out of nothing. No thought, no nothing, just, okay, let's just allow some kind of story here to emerge, and I'm not going to think about it at all. And what came out was Lightning Crashes. And to this day, I look back on it, and I really don't know where it came from, and I love that. The lyric isn't about a mother dying in the act of childbirth. It's and it's not about an abortion, which a lot of people thought. Lightning Crashes, the song, was really designed as a kind of as my take on reincarnation, or the cycle of birth and death. This death happening and this birth happening in the same house at about the same time. I think I might have talked to Jake Scott a little bit about the lyric of the song, and sort of that it was somewhat about a birth and a death happening simultaneously, and the transfer of energy that never ceases. That it, in that sense, there really is no beginning or end. There's just this cycle that just goes on and on. I remember showing up to the set, which was this vacated old white mansion down in downtown LA that was gutted out for whatever use, for film use, and just feeling like I had walked into a kind of bardo, like a kind of other loca or some other realm. It was so strange, and I had no idea. There was just so much fun about it too, because I didn't really have much to do with how that video looked. It was just like, okay, let's make a video for this song, and let's allow it to emerge. And that's why I think Lightning Crashes, the song in the video, is one of those rare moments where the visual actually assists in the delivery of the song. Jake called and he said, should we end it with the baby? Because I'm feeling that it looks a little bit too much like a dentist commercial or something. And I said, no, you gotta have the baby. I mean, that's the whole point. The crazy thing about Lightning Crashes is that, it was written long before I had any children. So, now I still learn from this song. It still has so much to teach me. The video for I Alone is really, like all live videos, deadly surreal. People really thought we were like into some, like, we were deeply, either we were like Amish or we were something strange. I was the Amish monk on sugar with a rat tail coming out of the back of his head and snakes in the video, and what the hell are you guys on? And the truth is that none of us had ever done any drugs. We were just riding a wave. And we had no idea it was going to sell 8 million records or whatever it was, and we'd be all over MTV and that kind of thing. But yet somewhere deep down we never expected less. You have to listen to Secret Samadhi in the context, and watch the videos, in the context of a band that was now super famous, about as big as you could get as a rock band, I guess. 8 million records sold, and a video, and it was all over MTV, and all the stuff that comes with that, and all the upheaval in our lives. We had money, which is a double-edged sword, and we had success, and what to do now, what to be. So Secret Samadhi is the sound of a band, I always say it's the sound of a band in retreat. It's kind of like, oh my God, look what happened. Let's go to somewhere and just get in a room and it maybe bring some therapy with us, and just figure out what the hell we're going to do now. And so what we did was we went to Jamaica and we rented this really cool house in Montego Bay. And we drank a lot of wine and sat around this pool a lot and just hung out as bros. And the record does not sound anything like Jamaica. In fact, it's so bizarre and lyrically so out there that I still really don't know what most of it's about. Let's just say we were friendly with the gardener in Jamaica, and very friendly with the gardener. Anyway, you have to listen to Secret Samadhi. I mean, you can listen to it however you want, but how I listen to it is, I see it as, an album that's really a statement about the fact that we really still, even though all the success had happened, that we really considered ourselves artists still. And that what better thing to, how better to prove that we weren't pop artists than to come out with Lakini's Juice for the first single after Lightning Crashes, which was just an absolute 180. What it did, kind of in one fell swoop, was to kind of rearrange everybody's vision of the band, including our own. If you even listen to a song like Lakini's Juice, which is this jang, 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 jang. I remember when I first heard it, I was like, what the f am I supposed to do with this? And then I started, it's an evening I shared with the sun. You could play it on a piano. And the two together make the yin and yang of that song. There's two elements which give it a depth, a mystery that I think is unique. And a lot of our music, that's where we're headed. Even though we might be rocking in a song like Lakini's Juice, you never get the sense that it's gratuitously in your face just to kind of be angry with you or to get at you. It's aggression kind of conscious, kind of in the music, kind of up inside it. When I look at the Lakini's Juice video, I think of the Tantra. I think of bringing conscious energy to deep urges, like whether they be sexual or wrapped around a loud guitar, whatever they are. I think of heavy as not necessarily loud, but some of the soul, the heavy soul feel, of the and it has something else that keeps it heavy, but not in your face. We've always had an incredible relationship with our female fans. I mean, there's something about the lyric that just endears itself to both men and women, but the fact that we're loud does not bother the ladies at all. As live, we stopped practicing when we were about 18. we don't even live anywhere near each other when we're off the road. And people go how do you do it? And it's well, I don't know. We just like snap right back. It's sort of like, you know, when you it is really like riding a bike, you know, and we learned it so damn long ago. It comes from the synergy between us. It doesn't come from, you know, a lot of schooling for sure, because we never learned, you know, anything in school regarding music. I mean, except for, you know, I played the trumpet in marching band, so I mean, you know, it doesn't. You know what we did learn in marching band though, and we were all for in marching band. Yes, we were. We learned to be dynamic. It's rock and roll, yeah. It's pop music that can get played on the radio. It's, you know, it's 3.5, 4-minute songs, fine. But at some level too, it's really unpredictable. And it was really unpredictable from Lightning Crashes to Bikini Shoes. We wanted to keep it changing. We were sort of addicted to this kind of, you know, destroy it and let the phoenix kind of rise up from the ashes, you know, which drove our management nuts and our record company nuts. By the time we were making Secret Samadhi, it was really just like, you know, this feeling of abandon and sort of this odd mixture of like having our lives turned upside down but being really happy at the same time, and what all that sounded like, Secret Samadhi. Well, the distance to here, I mean, is an explosion of light it was an explosion of light in my life, and it represented a time in my life of tremendous rebirth and clarity, and coming out of sort of the darkness of what Secret Samadhi represented, and the sort of like upheaval that our lives went through after throwing copper. Distance to here is really, to use, you know, an old metaphor, the phoenix coming out of the ashes. From the sort of darkness and weirdness and the black cover of Secret Samadhi came this amazing record, The Distance to Here, which is still my favorite live record. The cover says it all. The difference between the two covers say it all. You know? Black and mandala, life, death, new birth. And that's really the way that I move as an artist. Build it up and tear it down. And having the balls to do it. What gives me the courage to build up and tear down and live as an artist in the face of pressure and stuff is just my love of creativity, my sort of devotion to the spirit of this songwriting, and what it represents to me is magical and mysterious, and God forbid I would get in the way too much and not let it do its thing, you know, and not let it just flow, you know, and so that's, or either that or I'm insane. It's probably a little bit of both. Gary, my manager, loves my insanity. He loves my artistry. He loves what I do, and he protects me. And we've been surrounded by wonderful people since we were snot-nosed kids walking in off the street. In terms of touring, the music is the fuel. The music is the fire. There's a whole lot of energy in touring, coming from the audience. Everybody loves to be loved, and so you get a lot of love on tour. I get that from the fans, like, you know, we love you, go, like, do more, you know, and so then I get real, you know, focused. So I guess it does help. It helps, you know, it helps kind of, you know, nurture me and support, and you get that loving look on people's faces is just like priceless, you know, just like, we love you. It's like, okay, gotta get to work, gotta keep them loving me, you know. Can't remember a time when we weren't touring and playing, you know. In fact, before we were making records, way before we were making records, we were playing and perfecting it year after year. How do you keep it going? How do you go from city to city? And the answer is easy. It's just that you're really not doing it. You're kind of riding the energy wave that is coming from the audience, and you're putting into the music. And that's really how you get by. In some ways, you grow up a lot on the road, really fast, because you get tons of experience. But then in some ways, you sort of, if you're not careful, can kind of become a little dysfunctional. You know what I mean? That's like, whereas like everybody's like kind of taking care of you. Somebody's paying your bills. You know, you have a business manager. You have all, like, right out of high school, you're being taken care of again. The Dolphins Cry video was the first time we'd ever used major effects. You know, the water coming down the alleyway is real, most of it. And so that was fun, you know, and it was intense, and it really communicated the vibe of the song, which was this, you know, rock and roll baptism, you know, of feeling, and the water was perfect. I've always related to water as the way consciousness feels in meditation. That when you're in deep meditation and deep feeling, that it feels like you are in an infinite ocean of feeling and bliss, and that feels like water. It feels like being submerged. And so water's always been, even traditionally, used to as a metaphor for spirit. We are one in consciousness. In reality, we are one, beyond difference, beyond the ego, beyond the separative impulse that we have with one another. We are one consciousness. And run to the water is just run to that oneness, run to that water, and be cleansed in that, and be, and be free. With videos like the one for Run to the Water and all those effects, you're doing it in front of a green screen, so you have no idea what it's going to be like, if it's going to be super cheese ball or if it's going to be really cool. You're just kind of flipping a coin with lots and lots of somebody's money, probably your own. I remember making Distance to Here and people saying, all the hot rock music at the time was like Korn and Limp Bizkit and all this really hyper aggressive music, and everybody was like, oh my God, what are we going to do with Run to the Water? And I thought, I don't give a shit what you do with it commercially. This is it. Run to the Water was, as a video, I really, really adore that video. It has this kind of Blade Runner, end of the world, kind of apocalyptic feel, which, kind of for the time that we were making it, really felt like the world we were living in, sort of an impending kind of disaster, which really did come pretty radically a few years later. I think The Distance to Here, for me, is my favorite live record, because from start to finish, it never wavers from its mission to bring spirit into the music. It's gospel, it's rock, it's everything that I ever wanted to make in a rock record. I mean, and the fact that it was made kind of released in 1999 was really the end of that decade for me. It was really like the best that I could do at that moment. So as far as politics are concerned, I never really got that into it. I never really, they're a band, System of a Down is a band, I mean, Rage Against the Machine. These are guys that are masters of that realm. Me, I always felt that, not that it should be ignored, or that political bands and bands that favor that expression are somehow less or anything. Not at all. I felt that my forte as an artist was to affect the inner space of people, and that if I could do that, I was doing my job, and that I was better at that, and there were smarter people to do the politics thing. 5 is our 5th record, and that's something. What a title.
Woo! Who came up with it?
I came up with 5. 5 came out 1 week after 9/11. And it was, needless to say, a crazy time. Emotionally, obviously for the nation and for us as a band, about to put out an album. It was just a wild emotional time, and very dark, obviously, and also tinged with this kind of, the apprehension, the excitement, and all that stuff that goes along with releasing a record. So it was a trippy time. When I think of this record, I think of Overcome, because I could have never, ever in a million years seen those planes hit those towers, or seen this song happen like it happened. When 9/11 happened, kind of the brainchild of our manager Gary and me, we decided what can we do? Do we have a song that we could give away or something? So we put Overcome up on our website, just because I thought the lyric was relevant to the time, and so did Gary, and we just thought it was perfect. So we put it up as a gift, kind of to our fans, like, hey, this isn't out yet, but here's Overcome. Within about a week or week and a half, it was literally all over the radio. And I was just astounded at the response. I remember calling the station in DC and doing an on-the-air interview, and the DJ was saying that she had never heard people calling and crying to request a song before, like she had with Overcome. It was the most spontaneous thing. And I mean, songwriting itself is spontaneous. This was wild, because the way that this happened was just completely out of my control. This guy from cameraplanet.com put this video together, and it went directly on VH1 next to Leonard Cohen's, the Jeff Buckley version of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, and U2's One, and Overcome, played on VH1, I swear, like all day long. It was just this beautiful memorial. I would say my favorite country to tour in is Holland. City, Amsterdam. Hey, we won't go any further. We can. I love the Dutch. The Dutch get me, and it's the wildest and coolest relationship I have with the Dutch that I cannot explain, other than I must have been Dutch in a former life. I don't really see myself headed anywhere. I've learned enough in this crazy 12 years making music to know that nothing happens in the future. It only happens in the now. And I'm so happy in the now that I don't want to move, and I don't want to think about what's going to happen at all. The fact is that the feeling, or that fire that is the creative spirit, has been the continuum to this moment. So there hasn't really been a whole lot that's happened except that fire. And I just hope everybody feels that. And that's really my goal, is that everybody gets a taste of that. Maybe if you're at a concert or you're listening to the music, that you get a taste of that moment that I try to live in all the time. Birds of Prey is our 6th album, and it's, I say in the liner notes that it's the sound of a band restarting its engines. You know, the guy who writes the lyrics has a baby, and it gets real. You know, not that it wasn't real before, but it gets different. It changes. Something occurs that just makes it less of a search and more of a find. It's a return to a sound that we're really comfortable with, that is very familiar. 4 guys, guitars, lots of dynamic shift, lots of emotion. And Heaven, in particular, the first single, obviously is about the birth of my first daughter, Anna. She brought forth in me a kind of understanding that I had been longing for, that I couldn't get without her. I wrote Heaven when I saw her ultrasound at about 7 months and figured out she was a girl. That was enough. It was like, there we go, here we go now. And so actually in the space, this is how long things take in our world. In the space between writing that song and her 7-month ultrasound, by the time the record was played on the radio about 6 months, she could sing it. I moved to California about 6 years ago, and the automobile was made for California. Like, you think it's made in Detroit for people on the East Coast and the Midwest, but the car is actually designed for California and for the Southwest. So if you haven't driven your car out here, you really need to get your ass out here and drive, because and you also need to bring a copy of Birds of Prey and Runaway with you, because it's a driving song, and it really is about freedom and about the sort of temple that a car can be. The video for Runaway and the song feature Shelby Lynn, and the song was originally recorded without her, and I had the idea to do it as a duet, and again, one of those magical, spontaneous things happened where she was on the list, and actually number 1 on my list of people I wanted to sing, and she said yes and came out, and we had a blast doing the song, and she just nailed it, and she's amazing, and she's beautiful, and it was perfect. I think there's some kind of cosmic biorhythm going on where every 3rd album has a sexual curve. Ultimately, making music is kind of a sexual act. You know, it's a sensual act. You know, singing is like intensely sensual for me. The throat chakra is like this thing that vibrates and throttles and feels so damn good to sing. I've always sung. I've been singing since I was 5. Singing is about losing control and keeping it at the same time. I mean, a great voice is really full of feeling, full of that vibration, full of emotion. But the conscious element, the sort of right brain element that moves it, is just as important. And so you learn a lot being a singer because it's that balance. And when you combine that singing and the art form of it with the rest of people, whether they be in the audience or listening to a record, something magical happens. That it's happening. I used to have visions of people in my throat, that people were sitting in my throat. I see people, and maybe it's from the stage point of view, they look like they're coming out of my throat. I'm up here, you know, and they're down right about here. And so there's a communication that happens, a kind of feeling of communion or a oneness that happens when it's just wide open and the PA's rocking and everybody's right there in my throat.